electing this weekend is Malik Neighbors after yesterday's performance. What a day for Malik Neighbors. I think maybe I really and truly I would make this argument if I'm in the room and I'm a scout and I was there yesterday, and I know Marvin Harrison is this can't miss prospect from a wide receiver standpoint, but we just saw arguably the guy that, is in the debate of being right there with him with as wide receiver one selected off the board, and he goes out and performs like that, and the other guy decides not to work out. I don't blame Harrison for not working out. I wouldn't have blamed Nabers if he doesn't work out. Right? I mean, I haven't seen a mock draft that has Nabers outside of the top 6. That's a lot of money. Guaranteed. Coming at you in less than a month. Why go risk it? Or believe and bet on yourself and stamp home that you are the number one wide receiver in this draft. And I don't know how you don't look at yesterday's performance at any level, as a fan, a teammate, a coach, a scout, a GM, and say, that's the guy. I mean, he runs sub 4.3. He jumps 40. His hands look like they're off of a UFO, and he catches everything. At this point, I don't care how good Harrison is. Right? I mean, one guy bet on himself, said, I was the best wide receiver in college football all season long. My numbers said it. I was the biggest player in the biggest games. I was the best wide receiver from start to finish. And you robbed me of the Biletnikoff Award. Robbed him. I mean, this season should have an asterisk next to the Biletnikoff Award. And the asterisk should say, it did not go to the best wide receiver. I mean, Malik Neighbors' performance yesterday was just a continuation of everything he did during the fall on Saturdays. Hammer home that he's the best wide receiver in 2024. He's the best wide receiver in college football, and he's the best wide receiver going into the NFL draft. That's not disparaging or disrespecting Marvin Harrison at all. In his own right, he's a top 5, top 6 pick, and physically, he's an alien. But one guy proved it every single Saturday. And then he goes to pro day and he performs. He does that? Like, I got to be honest. I was thinking to myself, he may or may not work out. If he does work out, he's going to freak some people out. Like, he's going to be standout. I didn't think he was going to do that. I mean, that was, you compare his numbers next to Jamar Chase. He's Jamar Chase.
Which is crazy to compare to, right? Like, you wouldn't think that the measurables would be the same.
No.
Like, I didn't think he would measure at 6'3". I thought 6'1", just by watching him play.
He didn't measure at 6'3".
Was it 6'1"?
6 foot.
Yeah, 6 foot, what, 200? Yeah, 6 foot, 200. I guess I thought Jamar might have been 6'3", just because of the way he played.
He plays 6'3".
Right, and then you see Malik, and everything is the same, if not better, which is mind-blowing. But this is why you run. This is why you go test. If you in the day and age of the NFL draft, when scouts are looking for anything to, whether it be prove their case or disprove their case, this is an argument for look at what Malik can do. Like Stewie was saying, like, put on the tape and we're big, like, we just watch the film and you can see it. But when you do that in front of people and you can confirm it with the stopwatch, like, all right, the tape matches what he puts on film, or the time matches what he puts on film, it becomes, okay, this is validated. Like, all right, he's a legit 4.35 guy, jumps 42 inches. Okay, and then he did 15 reps at 225. That's things, it becomes almost, and then you have another guy that is believed to be the number one wide receiver off the board, but you don't have any of the information to validate it in terms of what scouts like to look at. Like, they want the hand time, they want the tangible, like, I want to see it with my eyes, as opposed to, like, anybody can turn on the tape and watch it. No, those are guys are 1 and 2. But when you put out the information of, here's me at pro day, this is what it looks like in person, that's where you start to have, all right, Marvin Harrison Jr., you can sit on the sidelines and have your reputation speak for itself. Malik's the last thing and the best thing you just saw.
I agree. And I think, I've always been a huge advocate for the tape speaks for itself. You don't need what, one of my favorites, Mike Detillier, would call the underwear Olympics.
Right.
You don't need to go through it to prove that this guy can play football. But for whatever reason, the NFL scouts want to see this stuff. They have a high demand for this, and you can make a lot of money if you perform in it. And for Malik Neighbors' standpoint, like we said, he didn't have to do it. I mean, if he decides not to work out yesterday, his draft status really doesn't necessarily move. I think he only had something outside looking in to lose if he worked out, would have been my thought. But that's weak-minded. I mean, that's not the way to think from an aggressive, I'm the best, let me bet on myself mentality that Malik Neighbors proved, showed, and should be compensated for that. I mean, this guy was absolutely robbed of the Bolitnikoff Award. It's a shame that you're not going to be able to take your kids' to Tiger Stadium and see Neighbors' face on the outside facade showing what happened during the 2023-2024 season, where he was the best player in the sport at that position.
He doesn't get his face on the outside of being All-American?
Yeah, he will, but
on
he
the
won't.
Front, right?
But he won't. It won't be on the Bolitnikoff Award winners,
and he won't be in the trophy room.
And that's something that gets lost in translation along the way. I'm not saying that Malik Neighbors will get lost in history of LSU, but I mean that means something. What do you think that would mean to Neighbors' grandkids coming back around, being like, "Yo, my pops used to dice them up in the SEC back in 2023," right? And don't forget this about Malik Neighbors. Malik Neighbors, at one point, was committed to Mississippi State and would have crawled on glass for an LSU offer. Would have walked over fire to play for LSU. When his LSU offer came, he didn't even have a chance to blink. He flipped on Mississippi State and stayed home and came to Louisiana. This has always and will forever be my point on you always start recruiting LSU football at home first. Malik Neighbors was a 2-star, 3-star. I know he was suspended his senior year and you didn't have film on him the last year he played, which was debatable in itself. But he doesn't play his senior year. He goes to Mississippi State, commits there at a camp, comes back to LSU, camps here. LSU takes a gamble on him, commits here. He's arguably the best receiver in the history of the program. Say that out loud. But more importantly, I think it's more of an example, and not with any type of aggressive nature or tone. It's just the example of, hey, Brian Kelly, you're at LSU. These are the guys. You don't have to travel the earth to go chase 4 and 5-star, 3, 4, and 5-star guys when a 2-star in your backyard could end up being the 3rd overall pick in the draft and arguably the best prospect that exists in this year's NFL draft. After what he did yesterday, I don't know how you could argue it.
He was a 4-star.
Had 3-star, 4-star, yeah. But I didn't know he didn't play his senior year.
Yeah,
he was suspended because
he transferred.
Was he not a 3-star?
No, he was a 4-star. He transferred
from.
Stewie.
Your facts.
It's a great story.
He transferred from Como High to Southside High, which is Como High is like kind of close to Youngsville, still in Lafayette. It's in that area, but Southside High was a new school in Youngsville that had just been built, and they had just started a football team. But his best friend was the quarterback at Southside, so he transferred to Southside to play with him for their senior year. Como caught wind of him transferring, blocked the transfer. All kind of stuff happened with LHSA. Some LHSA
nonsense.
Trey Green can't play basketball.
Imagine being the coach at Southside. Like, I think I got us one.
Imagine being the Zachary basketball coach. What do you mean he can play football?
Yeah, that's it.
Coach, I would cause a riot.
I mean, goodness.
I would go
nuclear.
And what's even more damning is his quarterback at at Como was Trey Harris, the number 1 receiver at Ole Miss right now. So it's like it's so wild what happens in that area of how kids move around and how they can't move around, how adults will have decisions over what kids do. It's crazy.
And imagine, but it's an even bigger test case for LSU and coming to LSU, because if he goes to Mississippi State, you don't have this. Everything was standing. He would be his junior year in a new offense that looked absolutely porous. He'd been awesome his probably freshman, sophomore year with Leach. But then this year he'd have disappeared.
He'd been with Leach.
Oh yeah,
he'd been a killer.
But then you have a junior year. It's like, what happened to Malik Neighbors? Like, you already see Xavier Thomas leaving Mississippi State. Like, there's a test case of him. Like, all right, look at what Malik did going to LSU, getting on that platform, and then you have the brand of what happens at Pro Day, where you have 200 people there, all there to watch you just to run and jump, and then you put on a show like that. It's like, all right, I might be the first off the board.
Shout out to our crew at Pro Day representing us yesterday. It was Stewie, Noah, Christian. You snuck in.
Yeah, Christian snuck in. Shut up. You got him in.
Not another teen movie.
Excellent work. Social media everywhere yesterday. The boys were moving yesterday at a fast pace. It was good to see. Our stuff was being used all over. I think I saw Caleb Williams retweeted.
We were everywhere.
I mean, we were everywhere.
We were all over.
Had the sight lines.
But great work by Noah, Stewie, and the team out there yesterday. Malik Neighbors couldn't have done any better. Lost in the shuffle was Brian Thomas. I guess.
I mean, right? He really just ran routes, so it was like you kind of know what you get with Brian Thomas. He made a catch with his over his shoulder with his fingertips, and it was probably one of the more beautiful catches that you'll see.
Yeah, but I think he did the combine, so he's like, I'm good on that. I don't need.
You got this tape on Brian Thomas where it's like
17 touchdowns later.
And some people are saying that Malik Neighbors is the stud wide receiver and Brian Thomas is the flashy wide receiver because they think that Malik Neighbors has more dog in him than Brian Thomas does. But they should not. I think a lot of people don't really understand Brian Thomas because he doesn't speak a lot. He's not as outspoken and as like Malik is more of like in your face type of deal.
Right.
Where Brian Thomas is more like
Patrick Queen.
Right.
I'm a bit more quiet.
Right. I'm gonna put it on your head. I might not even say anything. I'm gonna just walk away. I'm just making my money quietly. I don't
shy, but anybody who is
right. If
watching Brian Thomas knows that since a very, very young age, he has been
that dude.
And has been an easy call. Like whatever he wants to do, he'll be a lottery pick in basketball or be a top 10 pick in football. I mean, what was the last projection on him? 11?
Yeah, 12.
He started off like maybe a first rounder, then the combine.
I mean, they were trying to get him back.
I don't blame him.
I mean,
really, that got respected. You watched that bowl game.
At the end of the day, he's a top 10 pick.
Right. And that's what Brian Kelly talked about. That he was asked about like retention and what NIL can do to bring guys back. He's like, well, in the terms of Malik Neighbors and Brian Thomas, it's you can't really compete with $17 million as a signing bonus.
Right.
He's like, but for like the third and fourth or like the second and third day guys, like, yeah, that's what NIL can be for, is to retain guys. And I think they swung and missed a little bit on maybe a Mekhi Wingo who also,
his comments,
crushed
yesterday.
What?
Of Mason Smith and Mekhi Wingo
talking about how they didn't
know who the defensive line coach was
that was very
came from Pete Pickens, huh?
And like I was talking we talked to Jock the other day, and I was talking to Jock at practice. We were at practice watching Mekhi Wingo and Mason Smith watch the defensive line go through drills, and it was just
that is painful.
It's like Jay Johnson said, it's like watching your death.
Yeah, I don't ever want to see this
damn,
again.
I don't want to watch this, but I have to.
But that's what NIL would have been for, is to bring those two guys back. Then Mekhi shows out in the short shuttle, and it's like, okay, this is, he's going to get drafted. But if he had come back, Mekhi is a little bit of a different case of what more is there for him to prove. Like, this is the player that you're getting.
I agree. He's not going to grow 3 inches.
Mason Smith is if you put it all together and you produce at the college level, then it's a no doubt first round pick. And Pete Jenkins was the one that kind of broke the story of he was trying to get Mason Smith to come back, but he couldn't sell him on the defensive line coach, and that was ultimately he makes the decision to go pro. The next day, LSU makes the hire, and it was like, if I could have been able to sell Coach Davis, then I think we would have had a better chance to retain Mason Smith. But him not knowing it almost makes the decision for him of, I'm not coming back to what I just walked into last year because Pete's like, I'm not coming back. So, like, you can't drag me out of the casket again.
I'm not gonna
Put me in the all blacks and make me.